There is a strange fire in the age we live in, where screens glow brighter than truth, and voices compete not to understand, but to conquer, where people gather in digital temples of certainty, and call it wisdom, while calling every disagreement an enemy. And somewhere inside this storm of slogans and outrage, ordinary people rise, each morning believing they are fighting for survival, for family, for country, for dignity, yet often do not see the hands guiding the levers above them. The systems that feed on attention, fear, division, and endless reaction. And so they laugh, sometimes at the pain of others, not always from cruelty, but from distance, from repetition, from a slow hardening of empathy shaped by constant noise, until suffering becomes content and truth becomes debate and scripture becomes a weapon instead of a mirror. And still the paradox remains that many who cheer for strong leaders and harsh solutions are themselves standing in the very lines of consequence, where healthcare becomes harder, rent climbs higher, food grows heavier in cost, and labor stretches thinner while promises echo louder. And yet belief is a powerful thing, stronger than evidence, stronger than fatigue, stronger even than the body's own warnings that something is breaking. And so people argue not only about policy, but about reality itself, as if truth was something voted into existence rather than something lived in bone and consequence. And in this landscape, it is easy for anyone on any side to mistake loyalty for righteousness and outrage for clarity and certainty for wisdom. But history whispers a quieter message beneath the shouting, that movements built on contempt eventually consume their own, that systems built on division rarely stop at the borders they promise to defend, and that harm is never neatly contained to the other for long. And still there are teachers in older words, voices that say the measure of a society is not in its power but in its mercy, not in its domination, but in how it treats the vulnerable, the stranger, the outsider, the poor, the forgotten. And those words do not belong to one faction or tribe, though they are often claimed by many, but they cut through all of them like a blade of honesty, asking whether love has survived inside the argument. And the hardest truth is not that people are simply blind, but that they are overwhelmed, pulled into narratives that reward anger more than understanding, loyalty more than reflection, and performance more than humility. And so waking up is not a single moment of insult or confrontation, but a slow, painful recognition that what was thought to be protection can sometimes become imprisonment, that what was thought to be strength can sometimes become manipulation, and that what was thought to be winning can still leave a person losing the very things that matter most: health, stability, peace, connection. And maybe the real question is not how to shame one another into clarity, but how to rebuild the ability to see without filters of rage, to disagree without dehumanizing, to question without collapsing into despair. Because if everyone is certain they are the only ones awake, then the entire world becomes a room full of shouting sleepers refusing to notice the fire. And somewhere beyond the noise there is still a possibility, fragile but real, that people can return from ideology to empathy, from performance to truth, from hatred of imagined enemies to care for actual neighbors. And that return does not begin in victory, but in honesty, and not in winning arguments, but in refusing to let arguments erase humanity itself. And so the call is not to destroy one another in the name of awakening, but to awaken in a way that leaves more room for compassion than before, more room for listening than before, and more room for the shared reality that no one escapes consequence, and no one survives division forever. And every system built without mercy eventually asks mercy from those it once ignored.